Amazon workers of Reddit. Amazon is on record as being dehumanizing to work for and for treating employees very poorly. What are some examples of this? I don't work there anymore, but I worked there in 2017. For about 9 months. I was a stower. It was the worst job I ever had. I would come into work, grab my scanner and spend 10 hours walking through a huge metal library of bins, scanning item after item after item. You were not allowed to talk to anyone. You are always timed. Your scanner would have a timer on it saying you have to scan 10 items a minute or you would get taught. Time off task enough of that and you get fired. Everyone has their heads down. It was so depressing. Management didn't know you or care about you. I would go home crying every night. Finally I got fired because I went to the bathroom and got too much tot. Yes, going to the bathroom costs tot. That's the only time I've been fired. I cried of joy that day. Getting fired from Amazon for not meeting rate was probably the best thing to ever happen to me. I worked there when they had just opened a new warehouse for 6 months. I was a picker. My group that I came in with was the first overnight outbound group for the warehouse. I was made what they call an ambassador. They train the incoming people. I spent so much time training people that I rarely if ever picked. So my numbers were low because I never had a chance to get them higher. Times that I was able to pick, I was pulled off picking to go help people who struggled with their speed. I helped many people get their numbers up. When I finally started picking more, I started getting written up for my speed. They wanted 350 an hour. When I was fired I was at 325. So super close. You don't mean 350 difference, cuz that can't be humanly possible. I guess people don't understand. There is a difference between an item count and a SKU. A SKU means one unique item, meaning you could pick 350 items and still only have picked one SKU. So I'm asking if it was a SKU count or just blanket item count. Hope that makes more sense. Got written up because I did my job too efficiently. I worked as a packer for about 8 months before I quit, and they would have us pack at a certain rate per hour. For example, 250 items per hour during peak season. So people always went for the largest orders. Well, the wall that has all the chutes with orders to be packed up was dead. We had a pretty slow night. So I go to the aisle, grab some boxes for my station, replace the packing tape in the dispenser, clean up any trash nearby, and then grab some water. I went back to my station and just waited for another order to be ready, and one of the managers walked up to me. She asked me why I wasn't packing anything, and I explained the above to her. Once I finished, she just looked at me and asked again why I wasn't packing. I explained it again. Then she said, and this is a direct quote, "I still remember, well, that doesn't explain why you aren't packing anything, so I'm gonna have to write you up. Sign here." Couple months later, I put in my 2 weeks and just used up all my PTO and vacation time. So much balls from that place. I do not miss it at all. Punishing their most efficient worker just because you finished your work quicker is a stupid way to treat their employees. Glad you leave that place. I wasn't allowed to go to the water fountain for a drink of water, or go to the bathroom, unless I was on my single 10-minute break. They also set impossible goals like scanning in 400 packages an hour, something that is humanly impossible. For the scanning thing, do you mean inducting or stow? And X200B. I don't work at Amazon, but someone close to me does. When I worked there I witnessed countless heart attacks and at least 4 times found poop in the aisles. During the holidays, there was an ambulance parked outside because the heart attacks were so frequent. They come find you when you're off task, like going to the bathroom, so people just pooped on the go. Bruh, what? Former employee. I worked in the office building on the day when someone attempted suicide. After emailing Bezos that he was going to do it. It was Cyber Monday. Bezos swept it under the rug and never addressed it. Now that is freaking heartless. Underreporting workplace injuries. Their EMTs are EMTs the same way 20th century Pinkerton were security guards. They are not there to help you. They are only there to protect the company. I've transported from those warehouses, and the mere fact that they were worried more about missing their rates and being written up fired than their injury is heartbreaking. They work these people till they drop and charge them every dollar they can while they're down. I was offered a job there as an on-site medical representative that pays twice what I make now, but taking that means selling out my morals and being an enemy of the people I want to help. So, you sell for sale is not for sale? This is clearly false advertising and I need to speak to your supervisor. I had a co-worker who had frequent seizures on the job. My entire department and the safety team were decently trained for helping her when she had the seizures, but she actually got promoted to a lead at an out-of-state Amazon. She literally dropped everything and moved across the country to be a lead at a different fulfillment center. They immediately fired her when she had her first seizure and refused to help her at all. It was pretty heartbreaking when I found out about it. I became sad reading this. Frick them for not helping. It's actually not that bad here in Germany. You get paid more than most jobs, that simple. Managers were cool. 45 minutes off break on a 9-hour shift. You could go out for a cigarette if you managed it right. And toilet breaks were never an issue. Only worked there for 2 months though, so I didn't get to experience all of the bad sides. Most if not all of the Amazon horror stories I've heard have come from the US. If they could get away with treating German workers as poorly as American ones, I'm sure they'd try. Nowhere is perfect, but keep in mind that you guys have it pretty good. Germany is in the top 5 for workers' rights, and top 10 for welfare spending, with a relatively healthy job market. So if a workplace is brutally crap, then they'll have a much harder time retaining staff than somewhere with rampant unemployment and no protections, where your only options are work or starve. This thread just adds onto the guilt when I cave and buy something on Amazon. But I definitely need it. Man, frick Amazon. There are so many alternative places to order whatever you need. Heck, when it comes to tech, Amazon's a horribly untrustworthy site anyway. Just gotta know where to look. And yeah, no ethical consumption. Sure, but Amazon is Amazon. There's still degrees of badness. I was a picker during the holidays. Peak 2019. It was an okay job. I wanted relatively little human contact and boy did I get it. Driving the OP forklift was kind of fun. Benefits were excellent. People were nice for the 2 minutes a day you saw them. Everyone got a giant pumpkin pie to take home the day before Thanksgiving. If you needed a restroom break, you could drive out of the aisles and park your OP in one of the 2 parking lots, conveniently located at either end of the 1 million SF plus warehouse. There go your metrics. Break time starts after you scan your last item. Then you had exactly 15 minutes before you had to scan another. Parking was at least a 4-minute project. I had fingers and toes pinched from picking items that were dangerously stowed in bins, and almost got whacked in the head by falling flat pack furniture, area rugs, pet food more than once. The only thing that truly ground my gears was how Amazon would deduct any time beyond 10 minutes past your scheduled time from your time card. If you clocked in 3 minutes early, finished your shift on time, based on when you pick your last item, they hassle you for stopping picking before your scheduled EOS, and it took you more than 10 minutes to unload, park your OP, and clock out. Too bad. You don't get paid for more than 10 Trainee. That's illegal, HR person. Shrug. That's Amazon. I did it for 3 months for extra cash and I'm happy that I never have to do it again. The work was physically demanding. I can't imagine doing it 40-68 a week for years. I work in California. The site is required by OSHA to have a written record of the number and dates of COVID infections as well as report an outbreak or major outbreak. They have outright refused to comply with this law. For all the people upvoting, I want to clarify this is not speculation. This is in spite of direct communication and request to local management, HR, IRC, CRC, grand rounds. After initial pushback from HR and IRC, the request was reasserted along with the clear description of their legal compliance obligations and copy of OSHA law. OSHA complaint was filed and communication was made on their part seeking compliance, and the company is basically refusing to disclose these statistics to employees as required by law, which obviously puts members of the workforce as well as the community as a whole at a greater risk because the sites are knowing operating outside the parameters of whatever their own policy dictates as safe to prevent infectious disease spread and They are simply testing but not doing any manner of contact tracing. That is, if you were shoulder to shoulder if not physically contacting another worker for periods of 45 meters to an hour through several periods of your workday and a worker in that tested positive, they are not going to notify you. Nor will they disclose if your facility is a community outbreak or major community outbreak. I applied at Amazon to be a picker back in April. Had a phone interview, and then an in-person interview at the center. I had 2 friends that worked there, and the interviewer asked one of them to show me around while she did another interview. While she was showing me a little bit of it, her scanner went off and her supervisor came out and yelled at her. She actually got written up for being told to step off the floor and show someone around. She looked at me and just mouthed the word run. I got a call later that day offering me the job, and I turned it down because of that whole interaction. The main problem here is the managers don't train or communicate properly, mostly because they're clueless and only have the job because they made friends with the right people. She should have been instructed to change what function she was in, training rather than stowing. I worked there 10 months in 2020. You are a human robot. You are expected to do X for a certain rate until your shift ends. You'll get written up if you don't meet rate or if you don't scan an item after 5 minutes. You will be surrounded by co-workers but be completely alone. No time to talk to anyone or make friends. The managers won't bother remembering your name despite seeing them every day 4 days a week. It's mentally draining and physically taxing. You do the same crap for 8-10 hours a day and you aren't allowed to have your phone or listen to music. This post is getting too long and doesn't even touch on the sexism racism I experienced there or how they handled the pandemic. Frick Amazon and frick Jeff Bezos. The irony that AI is feared more than humans. Humans treated like robots aren't capable of malfunction and retaliation. Just commenting so hopefully this post gets some more visibility. Frick Amazon. Replying to pump the algorithm. I worked at Amazon night shift a few years ago. Everybody was fricking each other and the parking lot smelled like weed all night. But either our warehouse was real cool on the rules or we didn't give a crap, lol. I honestly don't remember. It is a memory loss drug. Friendly reminder that Amazon's union busting website has a public contact form, https://www.doitwithoutdues.com/contact, that you can honestly report examples of dangerous union behavior on, for free. Commenting to boost this comment. Had a friend tell me that one time the warehouse he worked at had AC problems and instead of stopping and sending everyone home or bringing in fans or something to help cool stuff off, that they just had a bunch of ambulances waiting outside for anyone who may suffer from a heat stroke. We're talking Florida summer heat. Not me but a friend worked there, I'd say just barely a month or 2. She told me it was such a depressing place to be in. No phones allowed, not even to listen to music. Where she was put, the break room was clear in the heck on the other side of the building, so she literally had to use her break getting to her frickin' break, and that was the only time phones were allowed to. Wasn't able to talk to anybody at all. Had to like scan and box items within like 30 seconds or she'd get that time tardy. Yeah, she wasn't the same working there. I am glad she got out before it really got to her. She's doing so much better now. My friend said the same thing about the break room. Apparently his breaks are 30 minutes. But the break room is 11 minutes each way. Completely insane. I read an article about a UK Amazon warehouse that was out of town and bussed employees to the site. They fired people by deactivating their access card. So if you got fired, you only found out when you tried to scan in. Then you had to wait till the afternoon to get the bus home. I predict a riot. Worked for them as a temp during the holidays for some extra money to build a new computer. Thought why not? 24 hours a week, 12 hours Saturday Sunday, not too bad. Working there, however, it was hot in there. Probably 80 plus, and I drink a lot of water when I'm hot. You could step away to use the restroom but then you would get in trouble. I stepped away too many times and got fired 2 months in. Got enough money to build a computer though, but will never work for them again. As a previous warehouse janitor, I was under a lot of heat as well, but things like this did not make my day. Cleaning maggots, pee, and crap is not something I looked forward to. I understand that it's people's jobs at stake, but really, I didn't sign up for that. It was to clean floors and wood from pallets. I wasn't even assigned to the bathrooms but cleaned more bodily fluids than them. I was very thorough and it surprised me how frequent this happened. It's insane that crap like this gets exposed everywhere, yet nothing is able to be done. Kind of remind you of our government, huh? It's painful to think that Jeff Bezos is among the wealthiest people in the freaking world and this is how he got there. Painful and disgusting. I just ended my contract with Amazon recently. I was working as a DCO technician at a data center. The training was disorganized and they stick you with a random employee and just kind of expect you to sink or swim. They use AAA metrics and monitor every single thing you're doing. I got unlucky with my team and my hours and wasn't able to hit the right numbers, so I got let go. It was the most stressful 4 months of my entire life and sent me into a spiraling depression that I'm still trying to get over. The employees I was working with had ways of cheesing the metrics that I wasn't privy to as well. It seems once you get hired officially, not a contractor, they treat you a little bit better and the pay is good. But I got zero feedback about my work from management, and when they let me go there was no probationary period or talk. It was just a phone call letting me know they were terminating my employment. I got hurt on the job and now have a chronic injury. I can't lift more than 40 pounds and as soon as Amazon heard that I would have a permanent lifting restriction, they fired me because you can't do your job. My injury was 100% preventable and their own internal investigation ruled it the same. So I reported them to OSHA. So did something happen after that report? I worked at one of their sort centers part-time. It was actually pretty decent. The pay was better than retail. I got benefits, and the shifts only lasted 4-5 hours. You had the option to pick up more shifts called vet or to take off shifts if they didn't have enough work available called VTO. It was kinda dehumanizing to see that the free shirts they would give us sometimes said VTO. No way. I want vet as if we were nothing but wage slaves looking to devote all our time to a warehouse. I lasted about 6 months before it got so boring that I couldn't do it anymore, even with such short shifts. Surprisingly, Amazon was the best job I ever had. I worked at a newly opened warehouse in Tucson pre-pandemic and I loved it. I didn't have to talk to anyone or deal with customers, as that is my least favorite thing about working. Because of the Updoot PTO system, I could pretty much leave whenever I wanted if I had the time. The work itself was mind-numbingly boring, but it sure beat working at a fast food place. All of the managers I had actually cared and were real people, but I may have a positive experience because my numbers were always very good. If you do your work and get your head down, no one really bothers you. I would go to the bathroom during shift every day, so it seems like time off task was only super strict at certain warehouses. I had to quit because of COVID, but I would 100% go back. Amazon was the first, the only job I've ever had that I wouldn't leave screaming my head off. But then again, I'm an odd one and hate socializing with people. I honestly don't get the hate. I know Jeff Bezos is an evil rich frick, but I've worked at half a dozen call centers, Subway, Wendy's, and at least half a dozen sit-down restaurants, and I would go back to Amazon over any of these places in a heartbeat. I was treated much more poorly at Subway, where I would be forced to cover other people's shifts, working 16 hours with one break most weekends. This is pretty much exactly what I was going to write. I've done receive, stow, and pack. Receive and pack are easy, stow is difficult and lonely. Frick stow. That said, I've been at Amazon for almost 2 years now and I will never go back to food service or retail. Ah, fuck Amazon. I've never worked for Amazon, but I did for 10-hour flow shot clinics and heard a lot of people complain about how badly their feet hurt and what sort of problems they developed from never being able to sit down. The rooms we were in were conference rooms or something, and a lot of people were surprised there were chairs and they could sit to fill out the forms we had. I don't remember if the shots were mandatory, but they either had to come after they clocked out or show up early enough before their shift. They couldn't use their short breaks. Also, 1 year, we, the clinic workers, had to use the bathroom employees use because it was the closest. It was still 5 minutes to and from. not counting actually using the bathroom. 1 year, the room we were in was before the security checkpoint, so anyone getting a shot had to go through security to get to the room, and they would get yelled at if they crossed some line on the floor. I had to go through security to talk to HR to see what room we were in, and then had to go back through the scanner to actually get to the room. Even though the HR desk was within view of the security guards who were watching me and could see I didn't take anything, nor did I have the opportunity to do so. But at the end of each clinic, they let us just take our boxes and boxes of supplies past them without checking. I worked there in 2020 for the summer, about 4 months, and it was the worst job I have ever had. One example of being dehumanized that really stuck out to me was not being able to call in sick. Everything was done through an app and you either used PTO, paid time off, VTO, voluntary time off, which was a rare thing that was available and varied day to day, or you just took a point that counted against you in order to have a day off of work. There was no boss or manager to call if you were sick or got in a car wreck and couldn't make it to work. You were expected to be there every single day if you didn't want points. If you got to 10 points you were fired. I took this job out of necessity during the pandemic and I will never go back unless it is my absolute last hope. I would not recommend this to anyone. I also worked at one of the best locations in my state, so I will say that I was fortunate there, but it was still brain-numbing, thankless work that made life miserable. It's like this with many large companies. You call out using a phone system. No talking to a human being. Remember, if you work in a warehouse for Amazon, you are a temporary worker. Once a robot can do your job, a robot will do your job. To Amazon, you are a literal drone with downtime and maintenance costs. This is the same for many jobs at many different companies. Just recently offboarded with Amazon. I was a delivery driver. Here's what a day looked like. You come in around 10 o'clock and get your phone, pick sheet, the bags you'll grab at loadout, and other stuff. At around 11 o'clock we would load out. The warehouse people yell at you non-stop to hurry up as you're loading 300-400 packages in your van and trying to organize it, since they don't take time to organize the totes for you. 300-400 might sound small if you're thinking it's all envelopes. It's not. Lots of large boxes and the van is full of totes. You basically do something called cube out, where you physically can't stuff anything else in the van without it pouring onto you when you drive. So you don't have the back to work in anymore. It's completely packed. Better hope everything you need is not in the middle, because you would have to climb over boxes. Then on top of that you're being slammed with 160-200 stops, which sounds small to some people, but it takes all day. Many houses are in the middle of nowhere. Dirt roads you can't drive on, so they made us walk 15 minutes to a house or two. Apartments that are confusing as heck. Houses with no numbers. Gated communities where nobody wants to let you in or give you an access code, etc. So there's a lot that can take time and go wrong. On top of that, you're being rushed by someone who is watching how fast you're delivering and doesn't take into account these issues, but instead will just tell you to hurry. At this point the workload they put on the drivers has it where they're trying to find shortcuts and tricks to quickly deliver without having to sprint bolt at each stop. You shouldn't have to be physically exerting yourself that much anyways. A lot of the times we can't take our breaks if we want to deliver everything before it's dark outside and hard to see, dangerous when in rural areas, so we skip our breaks and have to pee in bottles. Even I did as a female. I have a funnel. We started to put boxes on the passenger seat and envelopes on the floor in between the seats to be able to grab and go, which saves time. Same with keeping the seatbelt buckled behind you. There's a lot of small things that are technically against the rules, but we do it anyways to be quicker. Amazon is always watching you or tracking you. We use an app called Mentor which rates our driving and records our routes. Anything like improper seatbelt usage, hard braking, hitting a curb, etc. will count against you and bring your score down. That's why we keep the seatbelt buckled in behind us. Now Amazon is introducing Netrodyne, which is a biometric camera which watches the driver and records them. Although it isn't live feed if it detects you doing anything such as looking down, looking at your phone, feeling drowsy, blowing through a stop sign, driving too close to someone, it'll alert you and record the last couple seconds and send it off to management. You can't even be tired on this job with the ridiculous workload without getting in trouble. I understand the safety aspect, but now drivers are going to have to stop using their shortcuts when delivering and they'll be much slower. It's frustrating for everyone. Drivers shouldn't have to be babysat or monitored. For more ants and stuff, check out our Amazon's drivers. I see a lot of bulls in this thread. As someone who works in an FC, I'm not gonna defend Amazon. I'm just gonna say that Reddit's anti-corporate circle jerk has made people believe some really stupid crap. Agreed. Plus people love to complain. One person sucks at a particular job and suddenly the company is evil and the job is impossible. I'm not saying Amazon isn't evil, but everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. My last job, people would complain and say it was impossible to do X amount in Y time, yet some of us were killing those numbers. We just understood what was needed and enjoyed the job, so we never had trouble with numbers. I work the customer service line for mostly a specific department, but my call blending it currently a little bit messed up and I get many irregular retail calls. Almost all my managers have been great. My most recent one has been harassing the team in charge of what calls get patched through to everyone, since retail calls are the absolute worst calls to take. However, the department has continued to basically blow us off with random excuses as to why they can't do it. Their current one basically boils down to we're not even going to consider fixing it until the end of Q1 inches. I am unable to comment on warehouse conditions as I've never stepped foot in one. I'm a driver for Amazon. I work for a third-party contractor and the minimal amount of safety gear they give us when we go on the road is not great. Plus the security in the warehouse I work out of is abysmal. You could put on any reflective vest and walk in through the back and nobody will question you. I never worked there, but from what I've heard they just treat people like ones and zeros instead of humans. And bad code needs to get fixed. What can you expect when you have a robot for a CEO? I worked at Amazon for over 3 years in a corporate office. I will preface this by saying that I do know a couple people who enjoyed their time at Amazon and several more people spread across 5 different corporate offices who loathed it. I met a few really good people and some awful, empty people. The problem was that the team I was on seemed to reward the latter. The company sets everything up, even in the higher salaried positions, to feel like you're always expendable. You don't get real raises, tiny percent increases. You get stock options during your review that vest years later. You have to wait a few years for your raise. Essentially, when people left, they were treated like a transaction, not a person. Our team's director was completely bought into the Amazon doctrine. He had Bezos quotes all over his office walls. Bezos was almost treated like his cult leader. It was very strange. We consistently had among the lowest satisfaction score for a department, and yet during my time, they were still working on a solution to morale. 2+ years with no movement and high turnover. There is also this underlying motto at the company that states, unless you know a better way. The idea is to push boundaries and try new things. That was my interpretation anyway. But challenging the status quo, on my team, mind, was not rewarded but actively discouraged. There was always a ton of pressure to conform. When I joined the team, people largely felt cold and distant. It was off-putting. I eventually learned they were worried about saying the wrong thing, to stand out or appear wrong about something. Of course, this made it difficult for anyone to suggest new ideas for processes, products. It was soul draining. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.